y'all, don't you hate it when this happens? 15 minutes ago, I had this table cleaned off. And it didn't take that long for me to totally wreck it all over again. So let me clean this up real quick, and then I'm gonna show you something. So all the time I've been away, you've been looking at this bowl of bananas. And that's what I was talking about, this bowl of bananas. So what this is about, I am getting ready. Oh, sprained my finger the other day. Can you see how swollen my finger is around that ring? Probably should have gone to the emergency room and they would have cut that ring off. I didn't want that ring cut off. So I've left it, and if it starts turning blue or something, I suppose I'll go and take care of it. But I had popsicle sticks and I had tape, so I put a popsicle stick under here, a popsicle stick on here, and I wrapped tape around. No, first of all, before I wrapped that, I put a piece of tape this way around the tip of my finger. So we've got the tip of my finger closed off. And then I wrapped the tape around and around and around, and that's taking care of my sprained finger. Pretty sure it's not broken, it's just sprained. I was walking the dog. I had my finger in the leash, and he decided he was going to take off. And he pulled in the opposite direction, and my finger went in the other direction, and it hurt like the devil. So I have a sprained finger. In fact, I hurt it again. I didn't knock it against anything today. I didn't hurt it again. But it hurt again today when I again had the dog, and his leash just hit it, and it hurt so bad it made me nauseated. Have you ever had an injury like that that hurts so bad that it makes you sick to your stomach when you touch it? Well, I can touch it. I mean, there's no problem with that. I mean, I touch it, it's fine. I just can't do anything out of the ordinary with it. I can't jar it. If I jar it, it really hurts. If you've ever had a sprained ankle, sprained anything, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And in a couple of days, the swelling will go down and it'll be fine. This is exactly what the doctor would have done if I had gone to the doctor or gone to the emergency room. There's nothing more that you can do to a sprain. So I'm self-medicated, not with drugs, except ibuprofen. I have taken ibuprofen for the pain a couple of times. Otherwise, I'm okay. So back away from that, let me show you the bananas. It's like magic, and the bananas are appearing again. So, bananas, almost rotten bananas. Not quite rotten, just very overripe. These bananas are going to be turned into banana bread, and I will bring you along with me when I make the banana bread, which will probably, as late as it is this afternoon, not exactly sure what time it is, but it's late afternoon. I will be doing this tomorrow. So come along with me tomorrow when I make banana bread. Look at these bananas. You see what I mean? Look at that. You would never, ever, ever think about eating that banana. You wouldn't want to put that, you know how you have peeled them before when they look like this. You know what they look like. And I need to get a bowl to mash the bananas in. Let me look under my counter. They're right here. So this is the bowl that they're going to go in. It's supposed to be, according to my recipe book, not my recipe book, this is my recipe that I've altered published recipe over the years, and I don't know, you can't even see this. I'll show you the page in just a second. It calls for a cup a cup of ripe bananas mashed or 3 medium. Well, I've got 3 medium. And I've done this before without measuring them, and it's wonderful even without measuring them if they have more than a cup of bananas in it. I'm not going to measure. I'm just going to mash these bananas. So move this bowl over. There's a speck of something in there. Get that out. Oops. You peel this banana. See, it really doesn't look that bad. The peels will go in my compost. Peel these little, what you call those? You don't want that part in there. You see this? There we go. That's good enough. Close enough. So there's one. It's easier to peel the bananas from this end. Did you know that? That one, the other end just happened to break off when I got it out of the bowl. So just do it like that. Unpeel the thing. Take the peeling off of it. And there's a piece of the peel. Put that in there. Break that in half. And then do the last one. There they are. So we've got 3 overripe bananas. Now let me get I'm going to use my potato masher. I'm going to mash these by hand instead of in the mixer. Now I do have my mixer right here, but this will be fine. I'm just mashing. You should be able to see that. Because once I put them in the mixer's going to mash them up. You hear that squishy sound? My hands are clean. I just washed my hands. And I'm not selling these. I'm going to be the one eating this. And besides, in addition to that, I was thinking about this the other day. If you use your hands and you get germs in the stuff that you're baking, when you bake it at 350 degrees for half an hour or however long it has to bake, anything that's in there is going to be sterilized. Just like your jars, your canning jars. Now, a water bath canner, maybe not. But if you're pressure canning something and you're doing it for several minutes, it's going to get up plenty high. You don't really need to sterilize your jars before you pressure can. So there's that. The bananas are mashed up enough. Let me wipe my hand off. See, I've got a towel right here. This towel looks dirty, but it's not. It was just washed. It's just stained. Next time I wash white clothes, I'm going to have to put some chlorine bleach in it. Okay, so the bananas have been mashed. Okay, well, move those out of the way. The next thing I'm going to do, even though it's the last thing in the recipe, I'm going to go ahead and chop the nuts that I want to go in here. Let me put these peels over in the compost. I'm going to step out of screen just for a second. Okay, now this calls my recipe. Here's my recipe. Look at this. I think I've used that a few times. This is a long time recipe of years and years and years. And I've got notes you can probably hardly see written in pencil down here in the bottom where I've made adaptations to it. So I will post the ingredients in the video notes. But it calls for 1.5 cups of pecans. Let me get my measuring cup. Here's 1 cup. Here's a 1/2 cup. The spoon's too long at it. Okay. Yours not deep enough. Okay, there we go. So take out some of the pecans. Just a few, like so. And I'm going to use my big butcher knife. I'm just going to do them like this. Okay. This side of this cutting board has a groove around the outside. I think it was intended for meats, to catch the meat juices. But it's also good for something like this, where things tend to fly and it'll catch things. So I don't want to, I'm coarse chopping this. I'm not going to chop this very fine. I like big chunks of pecans in my muffins. So there's some, and I will chop some more. And then come back with you when I'm done. You don't want to see me chop a cup and a half of nuts. That's enough for 1 cup. The first try. Let's see how much that makes. So that handful that I've made was a little less than a half cup. So get that in here, and I'll do some more. You know, the chopped nuts, well, they compact more in the cup, so it's going to take more than a cup and a half of the half nuts. You know how to do this? Show you. I'm holding down the tip. I'm holding down the tip of the knife with one hand and just rocking it. I'm moving. I'm pivoting it. And there's lots of things that you chop like that. Not just nuts. Whoops! Someone on the floor. The dog's going to have a good treat. There we go. Move that out of the way. Okay, so the pecans are chopped. I have a cup and a half of pecans, maybe a little bit overfilled, but that's okay. A few more nuts isn't going to hurt anything. I'm going to put the rest of these back in the freezer. I'll be right back. And let me read my recipe. That's another pecan. Let me move these out of the way. I have the other ingredients already measured out, so I don't have to worry about that too much. Except I haven't measured the baking soda and the salt. I'll get to that in a second. So the recipe calls for a half cup of butter, so that's 1 stick. You want it softened to room temperature. 2 eggs, those are large eggs, or if you have small eggs, 3 small eggs. A cup or 3 medium ripe bananas mashed. A cup and a half of flour. A half teaspoon of salt. 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. And 1 1/2 cups of pecans. The recipe says to cream the margarine. This is margarine. Okay, my recipe started off with margarine, and I don't cook with margarine anymore. That's how old this recipe is. So cream the butter, add sugar and eggs, and beat. Stir in mashed bananas. Add sifted dry ingredients. Add nuts. Fill paper muffin cups in pan, almost full. Bake 20 to 25 minutes. And can be frozen after baked. To serve, defrost an hour and place in a warm oven for 20 minutes. That's all there is to it. There's nothing to this. I have everything measured out except for the salt and baking soda. So I'm going to use these little cups right there. And it calls for a half teaspoon of salt. So this is kosher salt. I have my bigger package of it on my pantry, and I just used a spice bottle and keep this up in my shelf with my other spices. So there's a half teaspoon of salt and 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, we don't have a 3/4 of a teaspoon measuring spoon, but we do have a half teaspoon and a 1/4 teaspoon, so that's what I'm going to measure. Just measure that off. Let's see. Measure it off level. Put that in there. And then get my 1/4 1/4 teaspoon. The same thing. Yeah. So there we go. So there's our, I could have put those both in the same container, but I didn't. Get these out of the way. Well, the top doesn't want to screw back on. I'll deal with that later. So there we go. I'm going to mix these two ingredients together because they're supposed to be mixed together. It says to sift them together. I don't sift them together. Okay. There's my butter and eggs. There's the sugar. A couple of black specks in that. Let me get those out. I don't know what that is. You know, those black specks wouldn't show because of the nuts. Just saying. Okay, so here's the flour. And I'm just going to dump that in there. There's that. And my whisks are about right here in the back. I'm just going to use a whisk. I'm just going to mix up the flour and mix up the dry ingredients. That's basically all you have to do. Once you want them, you don't want just them in a pile on top of the flour. They need to mix together a little bit. Well, years ago, you really did have to sift the flour, but they're processing the flour so much that it really doesn't have very many lumps in it. And I think maybe the other reason to sift the flour was if it had any bugs in it. So there we go. I've got the flour ready to go. I've got the mashed bananas. I'll get all the stuff out of the way. This is all going to be dumped in a minute. So take your mixing bowl and always wipe it out. Don't know if there's anything in it. If you have a KitchenAid like this, you want to be sure that you've got the bowl locked into place. Now, the recipe says to cream the butter. So you're going to cream the butter, and then we're going to add the sugar and the eggs. So creaming, this is really, really, really soft. I'm going to use this paddle. Yeah, let me see here. See this on here? See that thing here? And you see the notch here? Just line them up. Whoop, not right. Look on this side. There's the notch. You want to line that notch up with that and then twist it into place. We all know this. If you have one of these mixers, see how much I've used this? I need to get a new beater. So I'm going to open up this butter, and it is super, super soft. It's getting warm here in the house. You know, this wrapper is going to be really good for buttering things. I'm going to put this in my refrigerator when it's done because that's going to be perfect for greasing some kind of pan. I'll use my fingers. Put that off. I'm going to fold this up and put this in my refrigerator because that is going to be perfect. Now, if you don't know to do that, you've just learned something. You got to wipe my hand off because it's greasy. Put this in the fridge. Wait a second. You can't see what I've done. You know, be sure that you lock your bowl in, your mixer in place. Sometimes it kind of bounces around. So just start it off low. I have this on about medium speed. You see how the butter's getting lighter? Let me whip it up a little bit more. Good. Turn it off. Now I'm going to add the sugar. And do this and just pour in the sugar. You know, Susie, I think Banana Gramma has something that my mixer came with and I lost it. And it's a little plastic thing that fits on the outside with like a funnel on the outside of it like this. And you can pour into your mixer without it splashing everywhere. So I've lost that one a long time ago. I wonder if you can order them. So turn this back on. I'm going to cream the butter and the sugar. Turn this off and set it in the bowl. You want this to be light and fluffy. If you don't have a KitchenAid mixer or a stand mixer, you can do this by hand. Or you can use a hand mixer. No problem. That's what I did for years and years and years until my husband gave me this KitchenAid for Christmas one year. And then he was disappointed because I didn't get it out and use it the same day. Go figure. But I sure have loved the thing. Okay, I'm going to scrape it down one more time. You see that? See how this is looking? Enough. Now, the next thing is to add the eggs. Now, these are farm fresh eggs. So I'm going to crack them into a bowl first. I got my little bowl. Check that out, because these are farm eggs. You always need to crack them into something else just in case. Man, look how beautiful that egg is. Isn't that pretty? There goes one, and I'm gonna blend them in one at a time. That's looking good. You see that? It looks like frosting almost. Very, very much like cake frosting. You add the egg in, it almost looks like butter again. Crack the other egg. Oops. And I broke that yolk. That's okay. I cracked it too hard. So there's that one. Into the sink. And we're going to do it again. mixed up here. So the next step is to stir in the mashed bananas. So here's my bananas. Raise that up again and dump them in just like so. You can see that. There we go. Come on. Stirring them in is one thing. I'm going to use my mixer. I'm just not going to do it on high. It's on the lowest speed. Stop and scrape down the bowl. I'm going to get all the good stuff mixed in together. Again, this is, I don't know, everybody does this differently, but this is how, and I see a piece of dust or something right there. Get that off. I don't want that in my muffins. There we go. That's mixed good enough. So just add the sifted dry ingredients and then to add the nuts. I'm going to add the sifted dry ingredients a quarter cup at a time. So there's a quarter cup. Stir that until they're all incorporated. Good. Since I don't have that thing that Bandana Grandma has, I have to stop my mixer when I do this. Otherwise, the flour just flies everywhere. On low until the flour is incorporated. And then turn it on higher. Yeah. Nobody at a time, but it looks good. Turn it off. Add another quarter cup of flour. Stir it in again. Good. Just a little bit. Another scoop of flour. There we go. And we'll do it again. Have one or two more additions after this. Oops, see what I mean? Did you see that go? I forgot and turned it on too fast. Now, if you see that flour accumulating up on the top of the bowl, I am going to scrape that down at the very last. And then I'll turn the mixer back on one more time to get that to mix in. Okay. You know what? I think this time I'm just going to add the rest of it. Put that up. It'll be easier if I just tap the bowl right there and just, there we go, rest of the flour. Now again, there's a lot of flour there, so I'm going to turn this on low and off and on, and off and on, off and on. Now I think I can leave it on for a few minutes. Mix it in. Good enough. Now going to scrape it down. There we go. There we go. It's so hard not to taste that batter, you know. I grew up before people were worried about salmonella. And I never got sick. Or if I ever got sick, I didn't realize it was from eating raw eggs. I mean, how many times have you eaten the cake batter? Why do they call it cookie dough ice cream if you've never ate cookie dough? And that is it except for the nuts. So I'm just going to add, while this is going, I don't have to worry about those splashing like the flour. I'm just going to tap the nuts in. And the same thing with this one. There we go. The reason I don't use my food processor or blender or whatever to chop up my nuts is I want more control over it. I'm afraid that I will pulverize them to a powder, and I don't want powdered nuts in my food. I want big chunks, so I do this by hand, even if it takes a little more time. And that looks about right. Turn this off. And to take this beater off, you push up on it and twist it clockwise, and it comes off. Okay, now what I'm going to do, some people don't like it. You can get mad at me if you want to. I'm going to use my fingers and scrape as much as I can off the beater. I'm not going to lick my fingers. Now remember, my hands were washed before I started, so I'm not worried about this. Okay, there we go. And again, like I said before, if there are any germs in there, the germs are going to be dead by the time they come out of the oven. I'm not concerned about that one bit. So let me wash off my hand. We're going to put these in baking cups. We're going to do cupcakes. Muffins. We're doing muffins. And I've got paper cup lined muffin tin. The recipe says that if you fill the cups 3/4 full, it'll make 15 to 18. If you fill them almost to the top, almost all the way to the top, it'll make a dozen. And that's my intention. So here we go. Here's the muffin cups. Here is my bowl. There's my bowl right there. Maybe I can bring this back a little bit and raise it up a little bit. Let's see if I can do that. Where is the thing to do that? There we go. You can see better now. Put these other things out of the way. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to scrape the edges of the bowl down to kind of get the batter into the middle. You see what I'm doing? Yeah, like that. All the way down. Now, here's the trick. Now, where did I put my... Here, I see it. Don't you hate it when you put something somewhere and you can't remember it and it's right there? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. It's out of the way. I'm going to use this kind of ice cream scoop. Just a good scoop of it. Oh, let's see. Okay, I like to start in the back corner. Don't ask me why. That's just how I do it. You put it in here. And that is probably maybe a little more full than you want it, but we're going to see. I'm going to leave it like that. These don't rise a whole lot. We'll do another one. It's more like it. See, I'm not doing this. Well, I am. This is pretty much full. Into there. See how that, don't you love the way that does? It's so much easier. In here. You know, I think the reason I started doing this is lighting candles in a birthday cake. It's always easier to start on the back side of the cake and light the candles. That way you don't burn your arm when you reach across. If you can see what I'm doing here, I'm using the spatula. I'm just evening that off. And that way each of them is getting the same amount in them. Back in there. Get back in there. I think I'm going to have a little bit left over. I'll have to do a second batch. If you only have 2 eggs, if you only have 2 bananas, it still works. They're just not quite as banana-y. But still good. The trick to these, I believe, is beating them so much. I wonder. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to have maybe 2 muffins left. But I'm going to stop there. Now, come over to the oven. Turn this around. Put these in the oven. And the recipe says to 20 to 25 minutes at 350. And those are really full, but we'll see when they come out of the oven. Open that up, put them on the top rack. Stick them in there. And I'm going to set my timer. Okay, I'm going to set this for, it's going to beep, 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 beep. And start. So that'll let me know when it's done. It'll beep. We'll come back in here. So there we go. I've got the muffins in the oven, and I'll come back with you when I get them out. Okay, look at this. It's been 20 minutes. Oh, goodness gracious, those are beautiful. And I did this last 2 also. There's 2. This is an old muffin tin. Look at that. I don't use this for anything except muffins and muffin cups because it is aluminum. And this is my stainless one. Aren't those pretty? So I'm going to let them cool for a little bit, and then I'll show you what they look like. Oh, they smell so good. They really smell good. Okay, y'all, look at these. Aren't these delicious? I want to show you. These are maybe, well, they're done. They're perfectly done, except for, let me see, this one here on the end. I noticed, if you turn it over, I mean, they're soft. They smell wonderful. If you turn it over right here under the edge where it was touching the metal pan, it's a little bit toasty. See that? So I might have Well, the time said 20 to 25 minutes, so I started it, I checked it at 20. Maybe I should have checked it at 15. But they're going to be fine. And the edge will be crunchy where it was on the touching the metal, and these really, really are delicious. Let me see. Peel this off. Well, get it started. Here you go. See, it's a little bit toasty, a little burned on the bottom, and a little, let's see this. If I turn on the overhead light, if you can see better. Not really, I don't think that really helped much. Let's see here, look here. I'll bring this up to the camera, you can see better. See? But the rest of the muffin is just fluffy and delicious. The edges are just a little bit toasty. Well, some might say burned. But that's okay. They're still good. So I'm going to break these off because they're delicious and I'm going to eat them anyway. So get that out of the way. And cut this in half. And look at this. Look how moist and delicious that is. They're still a little bit warm. If you ever had banana muffins with butter, they're to die for.